Good morning, and thank you for taking time this morning to come and just discuss what I think is a critical element to just the future of the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, because this is your office, and I've been empowered to lead this organization, but ultimately the success will be about our communication, our ability to work together, and to be a good partner to many throughout our community at large, our law enforcement partners, our stakeholders, and those who are responsible to ensure that we are staying focused on the mission at hand. So I want to begin by just thanking a few folks. The law enforcement colleagues that are here from other agencies, thank you for the support, not only here today, but your willingness to work with us to ensure that we are a seamless law enforcement community throughout the Valley. To the Board of Supervisors, because taking this office had a lot of challenges, and to have partners who are responsible for the oversight of this organization, working day in and day out, having open communication, has assisted me in the transition. Bill Montgomery in the County Attorney's Office has been tremendous. And the mayors and council, city managers, not only from those that we're responsible to work directly with, but are their partners throughout the Valley. Maricopa County Manager Joy Rich and her staff, and the Arizona Grand who put this together for us today. My advisory boards who have been a critical part of this first stage of the transformation. And I want to mention a few folks, and this is going to be on the selfish side. Sergeant Gillette, Officer Kopic, and Director Mark Casey. What you're seeing here today was their efforts bringing this together, because it would be quite expensive if we were to outsource something like this. But I think what they've done has given us the opportunity to tell a story early on of who the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office is and where we are going. And just to my MCSO team and the executive staff, because the men and women in this organization are tremendous. And to have the chance to work with them towards a future where we will become respected and recognized for the exceptional talent that has always existed there, but now has had the opportunity to really flourish, to do what it is they signed on to do. And it's a tremendous organization with a tremendous future because of the people who have been invested in it for many years. So my objective today is this. It is to create a new lens, a new perspective to view what it is we are doing in law enforcement as one organization working with our partners in this community to provide safety. When I took office, there were a couple things I wanted to set as a priority. That was first to be a fair evaluator of our processes, our staff, all aspects, so that once we began to implement things, they were in the best interest of the community that we serve and those who have empowered me to lead this organization. And I've spoken this many times, but it's about a culture. And the culture oftentimes is not reflected of those who truly do the job because of the leadership. And as a leader, the most important thing you can do is give those within the organization the chance to define the culture because of who they are. And that's what you're going to see today. So the one statement I want to make before we go to the video is this. We are never going to be about bells and whistles. We're going to be about investments and outcomes. The investment is in our community that we serve. It's in our law enforcement partners. It's in our stakeholders. And it's in our staff. Because ultimately, if we do not empower them, train them, hold them accountable, and support them, they cannot be truly effective in fighting crime, in running detention centers, and doing what it is that's most important to keep safety for our community. So with that, I'm going to turn over to the video which tells the greater story. So thank you for your patience.
So you look at the fugitive apprehension group, and we know we're dealing with the worst of the worst. We're going after the violent offenders, the predators, the sexual offenders, and they don't want to go to jail. We've already had barricade situations, we've had pursuits, so they're willing to do whatever they have to do not to go to jail.
I believe one of the main things is trusting the people you work with. That is, I couldn't even tell you the trust that I have in the individuals I work with, and knowing that they'll be there if something were to happen.
We had a pursuit here of an armed robbery suspect not too long ago, and when we were closing in on him, his attempt to flee was blocked by us. He then turned around and tried making it back to the vehicle. And we closed in on before he could get into the vehicle, and there were 3 weapons inside the vehicle. So there's no doubt in my mind that his intention was to get to those guns and he was going to have a shootout with us.
One of the days we got called out was a call out to help one of the districts, District 2, which is the southwest region of the valley. They had an individual who he was involved in a robbery at a store in our district. He went in there with an assault rifle, held up the clerk. I think he left with $80 or something to that effect. When deputies were showing up to the scene, he left the scene. They got into a pursuit. He wrecked the vehicle. Deputies were walking up to the vehicle as he ran away with the assault rifle. When they passed the vehicle, they seen a female that was handcuffed in the back seat. Of course, they rendered aid to the female, found out that the vehicle belonged to her and she had been carjacked earlier that day and handcuffed in the back of the car. So he did the robbery with the victim in the back. So right away when they called me on that, I knew that this was going to be a certain type of individual that wasn't going to want to go to jail and would be very prone to violence.
I would have to say the work we do. The Special Victims Unit, you know, it's just like the title sounds. It deals with the most vulnerable in society, our young children, vulnerable adults with, you know, either our elderly or people with mental disabilities. So when there's heinous crimes or crimes that, typically the crimes we investigate are pretty serious crimes, and trying to help them and bring justice for them is really important. You can get really motivated to do it. And then being a part of the Southwest Family Advocacy Center, where it's a multidisciplinary type approach. It's a collaborative effort with victims advocates, county attorneys, therapists and counselors, and seeing them work with us, you know, as we go through doing our part of our job, and then seeing them help the victims recover and heal is, it's really good to see. You usually don't find a place in law enforcement where you get to see that aspect of it. So it helps you go home and smile a little bit.
Starting today, that circus ends and these tents come down. And we're going to give the taxpayers what they do want, which is an organization that runs efficiently.
As we learned more about what was going on with Intensity, I wasn't convinced from the beginning that closure was going to be a recommendation or that the sheriff was going to close it. So the idea that it was fixed certainly wasn't something that I was aware of from the beginning. So I was very happy to be able to participate in a very objective, clear process.
The surprises were that the inmates, by and large, at least at the time of year that we were out there, as an alternative, it was about as good as it gets for them. So it wasn't the kind of heinous punishment that I had been led to believe through the popular media. And also I was surprised to see that the business model out there in tents was really upside down now and was going to continue to be upside down.
You know, I have 3 sons and 1 son-in-law who are lawyers, and a couple of them practice criminal defense, and their view is Tent City's terrible. That was kind of my view as well, that it was not a good thing. It was a debasement of prisoners, violation of their rights. And what I found surprising is Actually, many of the prisoners to whom the group spoke preferred being in the tents as opposed to being incarcerated in the jail.
I believe we see ourselves as people are just disconnected. Like, we're in the process of just reconnecting, because you can't resolve anything disconnected. You know, you can have the best of intentions, you can have the best plans, you can want to heal all you want, but if you're not connected, then there's no resolution. So right now, this board and this committee is just about reconnecting first and foremost, and then we can come to what a reasonable level of resolution is.
So the bottom line is, I believe that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. That's one way I look at it. So while we're at the table, we want to sustain that belief system. That's how we began. Not a symbolic way of just saying, hey, I met with a few people here or there, we'll move forward, looks good, let's take pictures. I'm not being facetious. That's why I'm committed to this opportunity.
So if we have tough news to deliver, and if there's a difficult situation that this community is facing that involves the LGBTQ community, our job is to provide clear, honest, and factual advice to the sheriff, and that's what we will do. We're there to be proactive, to address things that need to be updated in the sheriff's office with regard to LGBTQ policies, and we're also there if there is an unfortunate situation where we may have to be reactive and provide guidance and consult on something that may have taken place, but we'll be there for that situation too.
Some of the things I want to talk about first and foremost is, in regards to the organization, if we're not fiscally responsible, we can't be successful. And one of my commitments since day one was to ensure that all of our decisions were first based on our ability to be effective because of our efficiencies. And as you saw in the video there, by eliminating Tent City, we project savings of about $4.5 million. What's not depicted is the opportunity to strengthen our detention officer force within the jails to provide them the support of those that were within the tents. It reduces overtime to benefit us financially, but it also reduces the wear and tear on our officers in a very trying and challenging environment. You also saw the savings of a projected $1.5 million. By working with the county attorney's office and getting their support, we were able to eliminate several third-party law firms that were acting on behalf of this office to address lawsuits, legal fees, and court orders from historical failures. Those are all handled now by the county attorney's office in partnership with my office and due to a newly created position. This is a positive for the community as well as the organization, because we're saving taxpayer dollars and we're strengthening our relationship with our partners on the prosecutorial side. You saw, I believe, 225 community engagements since taking office. That is due, the majority of which because of the community action officers and supervisors who on a day in, day out basis reach out to the community to learn. When we talk about connection, connection starts with communication. We will never be successful in law enforcement, regardless of the office or the agency, if we are disconnected from our community, because collectively, when we are united, we are the strength that addresses the issue of crime. When we are divided and fragmented, then we will surely fail and our families will suffer. That's why these have been priorities for me. Another issue is you can't truly evaluate how you're doing, or what your target or priority should be if you don't know how you're doing. When I took office, we had no program in place to have a regular evaluation of crime rates that were affecting the areas that we are responsible to provide policing services. We have established a foundation to ensure that we are gathering that data so that we can evaluate crime trends and determine how we can best disseminate our resources and our staffing model to be effective throughout the county. We began internal audits, which were lacking. Right now, we're using the state auditor to review our RICO funds, which we know have been challenges in other places. We want to make sure that we are proactive in that manner. We've also established a program where we can begin to keep an inventory of our own property, which I was quite surprised to find out when I arrived that we do not have any kind of a substantial or modern program to ensure that we are accounting for our own equipment, which comes at a great cost. And then I spoke before, and I'll continue to commit my top priorities, as you saw in the video, fugitives. Right now we have approximately 30,000 unserved felony warrants throughout Maricopa County from all agencies. Every felon poses an ongoing threat to our safety. These are the men and women who every day continue to commit crimes. So if you want to stop the next crime spree, catch the person who was responsible for the last crime spree, the one who's already wanted. We put this team together shortly after taking office, and you can already see the success. Every day they go to work as the hunters to get the bad people off the streets and hold them accountable who already want and continue to commit crimes that jeopardize our families and our children. And then crimes against children, not just the issue of addressing, investigating, enforcing, but education. What can we do to extend our reach to ensure that everyone watching this, everyone in our community, everyone present, recognizes it is our responsibility to keep our children safe. We must be accountable in law enforcement, but we must also call on you to be our partner to protect our most precious assets, our children, and we will continue to evolve and improve in that area to ensure that this community is the safest for our children in the nation. I want to speak briefly again about the fugitive program. My vision moving forward is to have one of the most robust fugitive apprehension programs in the nation, utilizing programs such as Silent Witness, extending our reach to the community, finding private partners who are willing to fund rewards to put price tags on the heads of those who are wanted in our community to ensure that they do not continue to harm our families, is the solution to this problem. It is an us versus them mentality. Us being the majority of the population in the community, them is the small percentage who continue to commit crimes. 30,000 warrants will not go away overnight, no matter how effective we are in law enforcement, but we are solely committed. We will continue to work hard with our law enforcement partners, but much like recent serial killer case that we saw and the ones of history, every time the community comes forward and acts as our partner is when we're most effective. So we should not wait for tragedy to react. We already have a tragedy and 30,000 warrants, and it's time to address it. Before we go to the next video, I just again want to speak to the importance of recognizing, as we talk about Law Enforcement Memorial Week and other issues, the men and women in this organization are tremendous in what they do day in and day out in the detention centers, on the streets, the civilian positions, and all of our law enforcement partners throughout the community. We must have trust and confidence in each other. We must work in partnership and have collaboration. And one of the first things that I recognized was that I had to earn the respect of the men and women in this organization while they earned my trust so that we could implement programs that would truly be effective. And that's the path that we're on right now. That's a future for the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, and that's a future for Maricopa County and Arizona as we demand excellence and work collectively to ensure that this office and the other agencies are most effective on our behalf.
The perception that you might have out there is wrong. You know, we come in and we want to do and attempt to do the best job we can.
I love my job. I love what I do. I love interacting with the public. I love serving, I always say, serving the pillars of the community. I love being able to make a positive impact, whether it's on a traffic stop and being polite to them, whether it's in a pretty harrowing situation in which I think, if I can say it, God has given me the ability to approach people and be respectful, but yet get the job done at the same time.
we're a family. We're out there to protect and serve. Just because of the stuff that's happened in the past doesn't mean that's who we are. So we're out there to help people.
When they call us, they need help, okay? And we're one of the few people in society that society's given the power to help people, to truly help them out of these situations. So if we don't do it, who does?
My uncle was a special agent with the FBI, and I always looked up to him, and I really admired what it was that he did, what it was that he had accomplished in his life. And I've always been an individual that doesn't always make the best choices, but I try to do what's right. And I think that the majority of law enforcement, and that includes all of us in law enforcement, try to do the right thing at the right time to the best of our abilities. And I really believe in that.
The officers that I deal with day in and day out have a good heart and want to do good and enjoy what they do. And I don't think they show the negativity that is sometimes portrayed in the media.
When I was a kid, probably about 10 years old, I met a police officer that came up to me and was extremely nice, and I always remember that, and from that day I always wanted to be a police officer.
It goes back to stranger danger program that the schools did back growing up, obviously in the late 70s, and I'll never forget a Phoenix police officer coming into a classroom and discussing stranger danger and officer friendly and that program, and that's forever stuck with me. And as stupid as this may sound, the police officer, we were asking him all the things on his duty belt. Well, what's this? And this is my gun, this is my radio and stuff. What's in there? He goes, well, he opens up his handcuff case and he pulled out these 2 perfectly round cookies. And obviously he didn't have enough to share with everybody, but I'll never forget just the impact that here's a human being, you know. I mean, he likes cookies. I love cookies. I mean, this guy's got to be a great guy.
My grandfather was one of the first black motorcycle officers for Atlantic City. And he, along with my father, who was also a police officer, and my uncle, who was also a police officer, I saw their lifestyle and pretty much tried to mimic the path that they had taken.
Well, it was a good opportunity to get into law enforcement, and it was supposed to be my shortcut and then go swearing, but I ended up liking it, and here I am 10 years down the road.
We are.
We are.
We are.
I'm Sab.
We are.
Mismo.
Otatone.
We are.
We are.
Somos un MCSO.
We are one MCSO.
It said respect for the law, respect for each other, respect for our community. That's who MCSO is. That's who MCSO will grow to be in this community by having the chance to truly show you who they are as individuals, because the organization, regardless of where it is not special because of the organization itself. It's special because of the unique individuals who are within the organization, no different than the unique individuals within our community. So my hope for today was not to show you a report card. It was to show you a lens to the future of the potential of this organization because of those who came before and having a chance to tell their stories, but also asking the community to be willing to commit to work with us to overcome challenges so that ultimately we all benefit. For those who have criticism, criticism is always openly appreciated if it's constructive and intended for solutions. If your criticism is intended to tear down or to undermine where we're going, then it's probably best if you step out of our way, because we are committed to becoming one of the most respected organizations in the nation. It's because of the men and women you just saw on the screen. So with that, I'd like to close and offer first questions to the audience, and I'm happy to answer any questions from the media. Does anyone have any questions that I could answer? Mayor, how are you, sir? Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Queen Creek, as I said earlier, our success is because of men and women such as he who are our partners that are selfless servants, public servants, servant leaders who put others first and wanted to come to the table to discuss ways that we can improve what we're doing. And most importantly, especially from his community, what we heard was great praise of the men and women who've been doing the job there for quite some time. Any other questions that I could answer? So Mr. Sierra's question relates to just recent state funding that we lost, which was about $1.5 million. We'll make the adjustments. Unfortunately, that money was allocated to specific resources that addressed issues of drug interdiction off the I-8 and other areas. I'm not going to get caught up, and I appreciate the question greatly. We're going to do our best with what we have. We will be affected in a way we'll have to kind of adjust resources and make some changes. We're not going to be laying anybody off, but when it comes to extracurricular activities that have great impact, if we lose those values, we have to make sure we're foundationally strong, and we'll allocate resources accordingly. Sir. So the question relates to how are we doing a better job to diversify the organization and to reach out when it comes to recruitment and other aspects. As you saw in some of the videos and the numbers of how many engagements we've had with the community, our focus is young men and women in this community of all races and colors. The story at the end about the cookies, that says it all. I think you saw one of the pictures. Now, I was fortunate enough, one of the many schools I've attended is actually Cortez High School, which is quite diverse. I mean, the minority population versus the majority is considerably, in contrast to the general numbers. But to be in front of any audience, and as you see the men and women who come from all different walks of life speak of who they are and why they're doing what they do, I think it's an inspiration of itself. So the better job that we can do to get out in front of young men and women and talk to them about what it means to be in law enforcement or in detention, and that it is a career choice, not a job choice, and why the rewards go far beyond any other measurable. It's our hope that we can build a relationship, show that we are caring and compassionate as much as we are strong, and inspire more young men and women to want to be a part of our organization, other law enforcement organizations. It's going to take time. It doesn't happen overnight. But it all begins with a relationship and a connection that you spoke of. But it has been a great commitment since the very beginning, and that's why you see, just in the reflection of some of the images there, how much time we're spending reaching out and getting in front of audiences. Lydia? That's a great question. I should have addressed that. As you saw, we had moving day. About half of the population was already moved inside the hardened facilities within 30 days. Now what we're doing is we're addressing the other half, which I said was going to be more complicated, which is work furlough, work release, because we want to be respectful and supportive of those programs. And to do that, it's a more challenging population to manage because they come and go on a daily basis. So right now we have plenty of space, but what we have to do is coordinate that population into one particular area so we can best manage their transition. So I still expect it's going to be a few months, but I'm confident that we'll have it all addressed within the time frame that I had expected. But within 30 days, and I thought it'd be 45 to 60, we already moved half the population indoors. Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Kavanaugh from Fountain Hills. And one of the things that we spoke of in that town hall, which I appreciated that the mayor facilitated on our behalf also, because we've had several town halls, we are an office committed to having town halls on a regular basis, but not so that you can hear from me. So you can hear from the men and women who do the job. They can learn about the issues that are unique to any particular community. But most importantly, we can talk about crime trends, education, drug prevention, these other issues where firsthand we can have that engagement and work collectively to overcome that. And I think that was a great exercise in how responsive a community is, because what is the focus? The focus is, are we staying true to the mission? Regardless of the man or woman wearing this uniform and these stars, you want to have confidence that they are committed to do the job the right way, which I am. So when we have a chance to speak directly and talk about ways to collaborate, we're always going to be far more powerful. Any other questions? Now I'll turn to our friends in the back of the media there. Thanks for the patience. Sir. We're still evaluating options. We're going to make sure that it is in a productive space. And when I say productive, what I mean is to make sure that it has long-term vision on ways that we can address issues such as recidivism. We have a MASH unit, which I know a lot of folks are concerned about, where right now our animals are housed inside our oldest jail. And although we give them life, it's not quality of life. So I'm looking at options for potential partnerships to utilize that space to have a program that incorporates inmates more directly with the animal population that we're caring for, and maybe even investing in some manner of a program to educate on compassion, to reduce recidivism, and maybe train some service dogs, things of that nature. So these are all visions right now, but I'm trying to bring together the pieces to determine how we can best utilize that space. But one of the things that's a priority for me is seeing if we can use that outside space in a healthy way, not leaving the dogs outside, but utilizing it as a park or something along those lines, where we can utilize it for their best interest and development health as much as the inmates to reduce recidivism. Sir? Well, what lacked before was we had no crime analysis. We had no baseline of statistics. And without a baseline of statistics, you can't tell whether or not you are improving or where there are greatest areas of need. So we have to have accurate data that is readily accessible in real time, that shows trends over time, so we can make determinations for specific communities if we need to allocate resources that are specialized. But if you have no baseline, you're flying blind. And in a lot of ways, the success of the organization and the service for our community has been more about the talent of the individuals than the sophistication of the processes. We need to make sure that we have sophisticated processes. Sir? So Melendra, as I spoke about, we eliminated the law firms, which came at a considerable cost. We've made pretty, I'd say, good progress. And one of the things that we've done very early on is became a better partner with those who were responsible to answer to, who are acting on behalf of Melendras, like the ACLU and the DOJ. We have a relationship with ASU where they're assisting us with some data. So my hope is to see an escalation of our success. I'm not sure if that's the correct word, where we are picking up the pace regarding the outcomes, such as what you've seen here today. It's about our actions, not our words. So what can I control? I can control that, how we allocate our staffing to meet compliance. What I can't control are elements such as the evaluations or our shortcomings in meeting expectations. So it's a long answer, but at the end of the day, we need 3 years of compliance on several categories of areas that have not yet been met. It's not going to happen quickly, but we're looking at every way possible to cut the costs and supplement the resources so that we can get there more quickly. The organization can never be healthy as long as we are utilizing a considerable amount of resources specifically to those court orders. I mean, it's necessary to do it, but once we can accomplish that and bring those resources back into the organization other ways, then we can be more focused on our mission at hand. It's a very complex question. I apologize. I don't have a more sophisticated answer, but in the first 100 days, I can tell you the relationship between this office, those who are holding us accountable in the courts, I believe has improved dramatically. Pardon my cold, I keep sniffling up here. I'm sure nobody else in the room has an allergy right now. What other questions can I answer, sir? Yes, the obligations under the court stay true. So in regards to the sheriff is we're required to have quarterly meetings. We have initiated regular meetings with, as I said, the ACLU and others to make sure that we're not just speaking every quarter, that we're working collaboratively, and they've been tremendous in this effort. So it is a court process. Those are court orders. We must adhere to them. Nothing has changed because I've become sheriff other than my name went onto the lawsuit. So we have another one coming up, I think, in just a month or two. And every time we have a status hearing, they evaluate where we are and what we've accomplished and where we've fallen short. We've seen successes, we've seen failures, but we're trying to reduce the failures and increase the successes. Again, I can't give you a better answer than that, not because I'm trying to avoid it. It's just, it's a very, very complex process. But every day, what's hard is like the men and women you've seen here, they want to get it right. They work hard to get it right. In many ways, part of the process is like learning to speak a new language. It's things that were unfamiliar before when we're talking about data evaluation, analysis, and establishing new policies and programs and training and all these different factors that are a new element to a very complex organization. So I'm asking for patience, but we're working in the right direction. Ma'am? One of the things, so just to put in perspective, I'll speak kind of backwards on this. The hierarchy of the organization, everyone from, say, deputy chief or above, I would tell you, I'm just throwing an estimate, but about 80% of that staffing model is different than the day that I arrived. The men and women who are holding those positions now are different than when I took office. And it wasn't some kind of, I'll grab the broom and sweep the floor. It was speaking with the men and women in the organization to determine who they felt were best suited to lead, that they felt best reflected where we're trying to go. That was step one. When we talk about standards, it is where are we drawing the line now compared to in the past relative to discipline, suspension, termination, all those factors, because if we do not set a standard and hold to that line consistently, no matter who you are, then we can't expect that those rules will be respected or adhered to. So we've been very diligent in that. We are ensuring that ethics and integrity are the priority. And what that does is it changes the complexion of the organization where in the short term you may have a setback. It's harder to find those diamonds in the rough. But in the long term, what you're doing is you are grabbing up all the diamonds in your organization becomes more substantial relative to the excellence that you strive for. So as we recruit, we're going to ensure that we represent something special, so people are drawn to us and gives us a bigger pool to recruit from. And once you put this patch or badge on your chest and shirt or represent this organization anyway, it is expected that you behave in a manner that reflects those who have committed to this excellence, and nothing below that standard will be tolerated. When it comes to connecting, we cannot work as though we are, well, first and foremost, we should never behave in a manner as though we're above the law. Secondly, we should never behave in a manner where we forget those who have empowered us to enforce the law. So connecting means being open to walking into every and all communities, because ultimately, no matter how diverse we may be, we are one community with many cultures. So connection means, in my opinion, and forgive me, Linda, if I'm not being laser focused on this, connecting means understanding our role and responsibility and being open to listen and learn, and then ultimately having the commitment to answer to those who you've met with. The connection means speaking to an issue, learning from it, and then closing the loop and keeping it on a regular basis. So, you know, whether it be Fountain Hills or whether it be some of our other communities that we serve, it's not going to be a one-stop and I'll see you in 4 years. It's going to be a regular drumbeat of us staying in front, whether it's myself or someone else in the organization. So there's a relationship. Connection to me is a relationship and not a once in, not a visit once a year because it's Easter Sunday. I'm Catholic, I can say that. I guess that was it, Mark. Mark's in charge, so when he says that's the end, that's the end. So let me close with this. Again, I appreciate you being here today. This was not intended to be a report card. It was intended to be hopefully an expression of who this organization truly is and where we're headed. As the sheriff, I'm not concerned with individuals' perspectives of me as a person. I am concerned with everyone's confidence that I serve the entire community. My commitment is to public safety and enforcing the law while leading an organization of talented men and women to respect the authority that you've given us. We are going to excel. We're going to make you proud. But to get it done, we need your help and your support. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to just catch up on where we are, and we have to get back to work. Thank you.